Hey, are you brand new to workplace safety and you don't even know where to start? Or maybe you're starting at a new company and you're just overwhelmed because there is so much to do. How do you pick what to do first? Well, today I am going to share with you the 4 basics of safety management that you should start regardless of whether you are new to safety or if you are starting at a new company. Let's get into the details. This is Safety Bri, your #1 safety geek. Why do we have the behaviors that we do? Superheroes in the workplace, right? All of those things that go into making you an effective safety manager. I love what we do. Motivation, learning, teaching, training, teamwork. I geek out over that just as much as I do safety. Hello, and welcome to the Safety Geek. This is Bri, your #1 safety geek. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Today, we are talking about the basics of safety management. So here's the thing. I got this message from somebody, and I've actually gotten it a couple of times. I got this message saying, Bri, I absolutely love your podcast. I love your videos. But I'm brand new, and some of the stuff you're talking about, I haven't experienced yet. So where do I start? And I've done a couple of videos and posts about this, but I really wanted to get in the weeds on this one and give you some really actionable items as to what you need to be doing. Because if you are a new person to occupational safety or workplace safety, whatever you want to call it, safety and health, it can be overwhelming and it can be very confusing. I know when I first started in safety, I didn't even understand what the safety department was. I was like, why do you need a department named that, right? So it's good to have these basic skills. Now, if you've been at this for a while, maybe you're changing companies, maybe it's a new organization, right? The same thing happens. You walk in, and I've done this like tens of times. You walk in and there is so much to do and you just get confused. Like, what should I do first? What's the most important? So I always put these 4 basics in place first before we get on to all the fun stuff, okay? So always start with them. And they are your claims management system, so your accident procedures and claims management, getting familiar with the regulations that apply to that company or that organization, training your employees, and setting up an inspection process. All right, so let's start off with talking about accident procedures and claims management. The definition of an accident is an unexpected event that generally has negative consequences. So the whole fact that it is unexpected means that it could happen at any moment. You're brand new to safety, you're brand new to the company. Within minutes, an accident can happen. So to me, that is the very first thing you should be doing. Day 1, hour 1, whatever, right? So when you're first getting started with the company, this is your first focus, is what are the current accident reporting procedures and follow-up procedures that are in place, and get yourself familiar with them. I'm not saying to change anything. I'm saying just get yourself familiar with them. So what I want you to do is to set up a meeting with the HR department, because generally they know what's going on with accidents reporting. Or if you are lucky enough to walk into a situation where there is a previous safety manager, you can talk to that previous safety manager. And then also talk to the department managers. All right. So first step is to get a feel of what they're currently doing. So what you want to ask these people is, what forms are you currently using? What are the current procedures? If someone was to cut themselves right now, what would you do? What medical facilities do you use? When do you determine, 911 is being called versus an urgent care or an occupational health? Who reports it to the insurance company, and how is that done? And if that is going to be your responsibility now, you want to get your login credentials to the insurance company as soon as possible. And what is their light duty procedure or their restricted duty procedure? What do you do after somebody has been injured and they have restrictions? What do you do to keep them working? I've seen both on that. I've got tons of opinions on it. But those are the things you need to know. So that way, if something were to happen, those first few weeks or few months of you in your new position, you know how to handle it. And I actually like to take accident and claims management to be one of the first policies that you try to revamp and improve upon, because claims management and good claims management is just low-hanging fruit for a safety manager. It is just so ripe to save the company money and get yourself that big win. I have walked into companies that have been spending millions of dollars on claims, and then I walk in and really tighten their accident procedures and their claims management and have brought in savings immediately. So I'm basically paying for myself. I used to always argue I should have like a 10% finder's fee or savings fee or something like that. I would have made more than my salary. So when you're going into a company that either has never had a safety manager, or there hasn't been a safety manager for quite a while, or maybe the previous safety manager didn't focus on claims that much, this is prime for you to make a huge impact on that company. Because what happens when HR is handling claims, they're not just handling claims, they're handling human resources. So what happens is someone gets injured, they do the reactive stuff. They just automatically file the claim and say, deal with the insurance company. They're not doing anything to proactively keep those costs down. They don't have the time. So as a safety manager, what you could be doing to manage your claims and to actually reduce those costs, first step is to know what they're doing. The next step is then get yourself familiar with the insurance company. You might want to talk to your CFO and find out, how much we're paying for insurance, what the premiums are, what the deductibles are. Generally, the CFO would have that information. Then you want to set up a meeting with your claims adjuster if you have a dedicated claims adjuster. So you always have the same adjuster handling all your claims, or maybe two. Sometimes I have seen where workers' comp is handled by one department and liability, general liability, auto liability is handled by another department. Have a meeting with those claims adjusters. And you could say, hey, I'm new. I am now the contact person, and my goal is to keep the costs down. Because here's the thing. We are now in an age where most insurance companies have a very high deductible. Some companies are large enough that they're self-insured. So there is no benefit to that claims adjuster to keep the costs down, because the insurance company's not paying for it anyway, and they earn fees by handling your claim. So what you want to do is tell them, no, my goal is to keep costs down, and I want you to work with me to keep these costs down. And then I'm going to work with you closely to make sure that we're keeping those costs down. That means that you're going to check in with them regularly, that, you're going to check with the employee regularly, make sure their treatment's going the right way, that you want them to investigate if you think that there happens to be fraud, or if the medical professional isn't doing a normal, getting them better quick enough, that type of thing. So have that conversation and set that tone that you are there to keep costs down. The next meeting I want you to have is with the healthcare provider. So you go to your occupational healthcare provider, not the emergency room. Most of your injuries should be handled by an urgent care or an occupational health, or maybe a specific doctor's office. Have a meeting with them and let them know, hey, I am now on board, and it is my goal to keep my injured workers working. Here are our job descriptions. We want to show them 100% complete care, but we want to keep our costs down too. So I am here to partner with you. And during this meeting, you can find out what follow-up paperwork they give following an accident, what paperwork they need from you. So that way you can really tighten up your accident procedures and make sure that they are the absolute best that they can be. So what you have done so far is you've met with the management team, the HR team, the insurance company, the occupational health. You are now ready to start improving your accident procedures. So doing policies, programs, procedures is not one of my 4 basics of safety. It's not one of those things that I'm always rushing to get into. I always like to take a step back, get my basics in first before I do that. But earmark this and say, improving my accident procedures are going to be the very first thing that I do. You can improve your forms and make sure that you're getting everything that you need to do, and then you could train your people on it, and then you can monitor it and just start making sure that you are managing claims to save the company money. So it's to care for the employee, but also to save the company money. So that way you are showing the value that safety is providing to that company. All right, that is my very first basics of safety management. My second one is get yourself familiar with the regulations that apply to your organization. Now, if you are brand new to safety and you don't even know what I'm talking about, what regulations, what companies, let me give you the list and I will tell you how you need to proceed from here. So generally you have safety regulations, and in the United States that falls under OSHA. But OSHA is a federal agency. And in the United States, there are rules that state that states can have their own safety regulations as long as they are meeting the federal. So there are, I believe it's 26 states within the US that have their own safety regulations. So that's the first thing you need to know, is whether or not you are in one of those states, and then you would go to your state safety office. If you are not in one of those states, then you would go to OSHA. The second one is transportation. If you have commercial motor vehicles or people driving on the road, regardless, you want to have transportation safety, and that would fall under the Department of Transportation. Next is environmental. So things to think of with environmental and whether or not they apply to you would be stormwater, spill prevention. If you have any chemicals, if you have any large amounts of chemicals, you might fall under process safety management or a risk management plan. There's air permitting if you have any like off-gassing. If you have generators, there's, I think it's RCRA or something. There's lots of different things. And if you have chemicals in your facility, you are going to have rules under the Environmental Protection Agency. And the way that I like to think about the two, and it's actually how they describe themselves too, is OSHA is protecting the employees and the EPA is protecting everybody outside of the company. So you're protecting the community. The next one is fire and electrical safety. And those rules are under the National Fire Protection Association. There are rules for there's NFPA 70E, which is electrical rules, and then there's the fire rules as well. So you are required to meet those too. Now, if you are a company that handles a product or has supplies on property that could cause great harm to the public, so you can harm the food supply, the water supply, any terrorist type of activities, stuff like that, you may fall under the Department of Homeland Security rules too. So keep that in mind. If you are mining or agriculture, there are different regulatory bodies for you as well as nuclear too. And those are the ones just off the top of my head. It is amazing how many regulatory bodies safety managers need to be familiar with. So as you are looking at these regulations, if you are not familiar with them, my suggestion to you would be to start off by just taking an entry-level course. Take an entry-level OSHA course, like a 30-hour OSHA course. Find a Department of Transportation course. J.J. Keller has a lot of those. Do some searches, use Google, it's your best friend, and take an entry-level course. And then once you can get a feeling about the regulations, you know how to read them, where to find them, you can really start getting into the weeds as to what regulations apply to the organization that you're working for. Now, once you have a good grasp of the regulations, you can then take your reg book and basically go regulation by regulation and ask yourself, does this apply to my organization? And anything that's a yes, put it on a nice little punch list. So that way you know what regulations are applying to your organization. So yes, you have safety regulations, but within those you have different subparts and different rules. So you want to go through each one. So a lot of stuff in general industry applies to most organizations, but some of it doesn't. So you can just go through and make that punch list. So when I am brand new to a company and I'm just starting out and I'm feeling like completely overwhelmed, I don't know where to start, that's generally where I start. I get my accident and claims management under control. I pull out my reg books and then I go, okay, which regulations apply to this organization? And I make a nice big list. And we're going to use that list in our next two basics, but you're also going to use it as you move your program forward. So it can be very, very tempting right now to look at this big list of regulations and say, okay, I want to get to work. I want to write the policies. I want to do this. I want to do that. But just hold off. We have two more basics that you need to get through. The next one is you want to set up your employee training. So you want to train all of your current employees plus any new hire employees. So you need to set up two processes. How are you going to handle new hires, which you would generally have those every week or every couple of weeks? And then how are you going to handle refresher training? When are you going to do that refresher training? So refresher training means that you've already trained them on it once, but they need to get trained on it repetitively, just to either reinforce the policy or to meet the regulation. Okay, so the way that you can figure out what needs to be trained on and what doesn't is you go to your punch list. So you have your punch list of what regulations apply to your organization. For each one, go under training and see what the training requirements are and make a note of it. When do they need to be trained? What exactly do they need to be trained on? So there are some regulations that say, hey, you have to do classroom training and practical training. So really put it out there as to what exactly does that training need to include? How often do they need to be retrained? And when does retraining become mandatory? So there are a lot of regulations out there that say that you just train them once and you're fine. However, if you observe that they're not following the policy, or if you observe that they're not understanding the safety of the policy, you then have to retrain them. So create a training plan or a matrix where it shows all the things they have to be trained on and who needs to be trained on it. Because you're going to have a large group of employees within your organization that don't necessarily need all the training. I'm not going to train my office staff on lockout tagout, but I am going to train my office staff as well as my production facility on ergonomics because it applies to everybody. You get it? Same thing. So kind of make a list as to the groups of employees you have and what they need to be trained on. And you can have a nice matrix and then start creating those trainings one at a time. So the way I like to do it is like I identify a training. So let's say it is forklift operation. I create the training materials on it and I go, okay, all these employees need to be trained on it. I train all of them and then I set up how I'm going to handle new hires at the same time. And then now I have my current employees that are now in my refresher training and retraining schedule, my process, but then I have a process for new hire training. Now, currently, I'm brand new. I only have one training done. We got forklift done. Then I move on to my next one. And I go, okay, now we're going to do ergonomics. Train everybody who on staff that's required to have ergonomics. We train them on it, and then we put a process in place on how we're going to train new hires. It does take time, but after a while, you'll have all of your new hire training ready and set, and all of your refresher training ready and set. So that is our next step, is setting up training. So if you are brand new to safety and you're not used to standing up here like I am and training people or talking to people, or you might be looking at like forklift. I can't even drive a forklift. How am I supposed to train people on how to do a forklift? So you might be feeling what we call imposter syndrome, that you don't know enough to be training on this. So what I want you to realize is you don't need to be the person that does the training. I actually recommend that you spread the training around because nobody likes to hear from the same person every single time. So maybe you have a certified forklift instructor on staff that is an employee and they do the forklift training. And then you have a competent person that does the fall protection training. And then you fill in with the HAZCOM training. Whatever it happens to be, you can spread it around. But the thing about imposter syndrome is the only way to get over it is to just jump in. You just have to do it. The best way to learn something is to teach it. So just pull your regulations. There's lots of great resources out there. Google is your friend here, and just jump in and do the training. And I promise you, my safety friend, if you are brand new and you're nervous, I've trained so many new safety managers who have gotten up there to do a 10-minute safety meeting and they were shaking and they were so nervous. They didn't know what they were going to do. But 6 months down the road, it was like a cakewalk for them because all it did was take them doing it week in and week out, and they found their groove. So yes, you may be nervous in the beginning, but you will get over it. I promise. Practice does make perfect. Our mothers were 100% correct. All right, so our last of the 4 basics is setting up inspections for the facility. Your facility has to be inspected 100%. I mean, every nook, every cranny. We're going to walk the fence line. We're going to go outside. We're going to climb the roof. We're going to go in the basement. Every bit of your facility needs to be inspected at least one time every 3 months. Now, you may have heard that it needs to be done monthly. That is not true. And even the one time every 3 months is not actually a rule. There are some regulations that require more frequent. There's some regulations that require less frequent. I like to guide you towards a world-class safety program. And the regulatory bodies that actually give VPP stars and ISO and all of that, they recommend quarterly. So let's go with that and it will work for you. Now, you don't have to be the only one doing these inspections. So you can have your frontline supervisors do them. You can have trained employees do them. You can have your safety committee do them. So my guide for you to get started on your facility inspections, if you're brand new or you're brand new to the company, how do you get started with inspections, is first break it up. And break up your inspections into different groups. Is it an equipment inspection? Is it a regulatory requirement or a regulatory specific inspection? Is it just a general facility safety inspection, right? So if it is an equipment inspection, I would have the equipment operators trained on how to do it and have them do regular paperwork. And you can have that paperwork for that inspection be daily, weekly, monthly, however the regulation is set up or however you see fit. So if you have an operator of a piece of equipment, maybe you have your maintenance department inspect it, maybe you have the operator of the equipment inspect it. If it is a regulatory specific, so things I'm thinking about here might be your exit lights, your fire extinguishers, your ladders, your respiratory protection, things like that, you can actually have a competent person inspect that equipment. So I used to do this with fall protection as well. So fall protection is inspected before you actually done it, but I would put it in writing once a month. So that way I at least had it in writing once a month by a competent person. So the way you can do that is you can split up your inspection forms and have different people do it. And the beauty about this, so you might look at it like this is just not efficient to have all of these different inspections going on, an exit light, a fire extinguisher, a ladder, a respiratory, right? But it does make your program better because you're not the one doing it all. You're actually spreading it around and getting other people involved. That, my friend, builds culture. And you're doing it right from the beginning. That this is how we do business and this is how we do it right. So that's one thing I like to do. And then I also like to get my safety committee involved in my general inspections. So I train them on hazard recognition and they do a general inspection every single month of a different area. So that way by the end of the quarter, the entire facility is inspected. And honestly, because I am a type A person, I do one myself every quarter as well, because I just feel like I'm looking at it from a regulatory standpoint, and I might see things that my inspectors didn't necessarily see. But I do know that there are lots of safety managers out there and leaders and directors that do not do inspections at all. They train their people how to do it, and then their people do the inspections. And that is 100% compliant. I just can't give up control for that completely. So if you are new and you don't understand, like, what am I supposed to be inspecting? What am I looking at? I would be going into an area and I'd be like, I don't know what to inspect. Everything looks fine to me. I've seen that too. So this is my guide for you. I want you to take your punch list of regulations and I want you to look at every requirement of the regulation and put it on an inspection form. So what's going to happen is when you do that, you're going to have a massive inspection form, but this is also a great way to learn the regulations too. So the first time you do this inspection, it's going to take you a long time. You're going to walk through with this massive list and you're going to go, is this in place? Is that in place? Right? But the more you do this, the more familiar you will become with your operation. So the next week you do it again, and the next month or the next quarter you do it again. And then you find, well, I don't need to inspect this every single time because it's a permanent fixture and we know it's there. So I could take that off of my inspection list. So you might start with a really long inspection list based off the regulation, and then you can whittle it down to what is useful for you. So just know every form is going to be tweaked. I actually am not a fan of the inspection forms that you can find online that literally are just listing the regulations. But I am a fan of it for when you are brand new and you're just trying to learn the regulations and you're just like, I'm not sure what this regulation is talking about. So put it on there, go out, maybe talk to some employees, talk to the managers, get some help there too. It is nothing wrong with asking for help with your inspections. And my biggest thing for you that I want to share with you about inspections that has really saved me multiple times is I listen to my gut. So as I'm walking around the facility and I'm looking at something and I'm just like, I just feel like something isn't right here. Like, this is not normal. I can't pinpoint what's wrong, but I'm feeling like this is not safe. always listen to your gut. You don't necessarily have to change everything right away, but listen to your gut and research it further and say, I think there's something a little funny about the way they're doing the electrical work. Let me do some more research on that. Maybe I'll bring in some experts. Maybe let me get them to make me feel confident that we're doing it right. I've seen that lots of times. And I'll tell you, I'll never forget, and it's electrical safety thing too. My gut just told me that my people were not telling me the truth. I would ask them over and over again, do you work on live electrical? Do you ever open up the box, the breaker box, and take the panel off? Do you ever, every question, like, no, we hire an electrician. We always outsource it, blah, 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 blah. Because I was looking around the facility and they had no PPE for electrical. They didn't have tools. They didn't have the proper tools for electrical. They didn't have the proper gloves. They didn't have the proper PPE. And they're like, because we don't do it, we don't have it. And it just, my gut just did not feel right. Because I'm looking at this facility going, there's no way. I've not seen enough electricians come in here for this work to be done. And sure enough, the more and more I looked into it, I found out that, my understanding of the electrical safety policy was not the same as theirs. And when I said getting into electrical panels, they thought just because it was powered off and locked out that they were fine. And I was like, no, you still need to kind of use everything because you're testing it. So it was kind of funny. So I always just kind of go back to that you'd always go with your gut. So even if you're new to safety, even if you're having a little bit of imposter syndrome and you're not sure if you know what you're doing yet, follow your gut. It will always lead you to a worst case scenario. You learn that there's nothing wrong, and then you can strengthen your understanding about the regulation. All right, so those are my 4 basics of safety that I feel you should always start with, regardless of whether you're brand new to safety or if you're just brand new to the company. Get your accident procedures and claims management under control. Get familiar with the regulations that are required for that location. Train your employees and set up a training plan, and then inspect your facility and set up an inspection process. And once you have those 4 done, you are ready for the fun stuff, my friends. You're ready to start writing policies, putting out programs, writing procedures and SOPs and JHAs, and working on behavior changes and safety habits and building out trending reports and doing investigations and all of the fun stuff that comes to safety. And I know right now I just totally confused you or overwhelmed you, but I promise you will understand what I'm saying in just a few months. So, alrighty, my safety friend, that is what I have for you this week. You guys have an amazing week, and I will chat with you again. Bye for now. You know what? I have a hunch that you have a BSF, a best safety friend, who would love to know about this show. Well, don't keep it to yourself. Sharing is caring. Stop what you're doing right now and forward this show to them. They will thank you. And don't forget to check out the show notes and links for this week's episode at thesafetygeek.com.